Okay, thank you, Andrew. Good morning, everyone. This meeting's been conducted by means of electronic participation as permitted by Section 238, 3.1 of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended in the Town of Mono Procedure Bylaw 2020-42. Council chambers will not be open to the public. This meeting may be viewed live starting at 9 a.m. on the 27th of October 2020 at the Mono Civic website. I'm confirming that all members of council are in attendance, and I call this meeting to order. Public notification of proceedings being video recorded and broadcast, and to remind members of council that disclosure of pecuniary interest can be made now at any time throughout the meeting, and it must be submitted in writing to the clerk. So this time I'm going to read the Indigenous land acknowledgement. We would like to begin to respectfully acknowledging that the town of Mono resides within the traditional territory and ancestral lands of the Tionantati, Atawandaron, Haudenosaunee, and Anishinaabe peoples. We also acknowledge the town of Mono resides within the treaty lands named under Treaty 18, the Nottawasaga Purchase of 1818. These traditional territories upon which we live and learn are steeped in rich Indigenous history and traditions. It is with this statement that we declare to honor and respect the past and present connection of Indigenous peoples with this land, its waterways, and resources. So this time I'd like to ask for approval of the agenda on session VC14-2020 as circulated. Could I have a mover? Moved by Nix. And seconded by Maitalo. And there's no additions or deletions or concerns regarding the agenda that's been circulated. Seeing none, then I'll ask if anyone is opposed to the motion. And I'm not seeing any, so that motion is carried. And the next item is approval of the previous minutes. That we approved the minutes of session VC13-2020 as circulated. Could I have a mover? Moved by Martin and seconded by Creelman. Any discussion, concerns? There's no one opposed. I'll declare this carried. And on to proclamations, there are none today, and on to public question period. Mr. Simpson, could you read off any questions have been received?
Yeah, we received one question for council for this morning. Cassette writes, in this time of COVID, when outdoor gatherings in Ontario have caps on the number of participants, what does Mono Council plan to do to advocate for the safety during the super spreader events taking place at Mono Cliffs every weekend?
Okay. We have submitted a letter to the management at the park to talk about the issues of parking, and we can also bring this forward to the park to find out what their processes and protocols are in place. Any other members of council have any comments on this? Yes, John?
I actually have a notice of motion prepared to address the issue of determining whether or not parking on one side of the third line or the other should be prohibited. So I was going to raise that under the schedule item of your very persuasive letter to Parks Ontario.
Okay, thank you. And the resident has asked for a phone call regarding an answer to the question posed. So, Mr. Simpson, do we have the contact information for that?
Yeah, Cassette has left her phone number, so we'll be able to reach out to her. Normally I do it by email, but because
I think I'd like to see Cosette's letter go as well to the management at the park. And I know that that's a county road right in front of the park, but perhaps county could get involved with that too. It's a one-lane road at times. The cars aren't even parked far enough to the side. And it's a little unnerving when a car is coming straight at you, but it slows traffic down.
Yes, okay. We'll take this discussion. Maybe since the letter just went out last week, I'll defer to our CAO as to timing with a follow-up phone call to the management. What do you feel is suitable? Do you think we should be trying it this week or wait till the following week?
Well, I can certainly try this week.
Okay. Okay, let's just see if we can keep this going. So, all right. So we're at the point where we have the zoning bylaw amendment, accessory building statutory public meeting. So I ask for someone to move that we adjourn the regular meeting of council and go into a public meeting to discuss a general amendment to the zoning bylaw pertaining to accessory buildings. Could I have a mover? Moved by Nix and seconded by Magdalo. Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, that's carried. So now we're into the statutory public meeting. And Mr. Trotman, you had provided us with overall of these current status. So if you'd be able to make further comments on your report.
Thank you, Mayor Ryan. I did do a report back in February initially, and then another one June the 16th, which was the primary report, I suppose you could say, regarding, including, of course, the existing provisions, which was attachment 1, and the proposed provisions, which was attachment 2. So that's all based on the council resolution 1023 2019 regarding reviewing the size of accessory structures in the rural area related to rural residential areas, uses, excuse me, relative to lot area. And there was a prescription there provided that gave an alternative, I suppose you might say, based on that ratio, be it under 0.8 hectares, between 0.8 and then 2, and then above 2, excuse me.
Okay. And we do have some submissions that we've received. Is there any questions of council members to Mr. Trotman at this point? Councillor Magdalo?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. There's been a number of suggestions made with respect to the actual formula. I believe attachment 1 and 2, and John Creelman also has a suggestion that the size of the accessory building would be limited to nothing greater than the size of the primary building. Have we made a decision on which of these 3 possibilities we're going to use?
No, because we wanted to certainly get public comment on the matter as well before we would probably take any one alternative further. And I do believe there was some commentary about that notion. Either was in my report or verbally about, of course, understanding that why would an accessory structure generally be larger than the primary dwelling, which it's a fair point actually. But there are or could be cases where that might not be the situation, where an accessory structure could be larger than a house, particularly if it's a smaller house. So that was one of the comments in reply to that inquiry. And that was a key one, I think.
So if I may continue, Your Honor, I'd like to pursue this with further discussion of these 3 options.
Okay, so do you want to have that discussion now, or do we want to open it up to public comment so that we have that input also? What is the wish of council?
Let's open it up.
Okay then. So at this time, I'd like to ask for any member of the public that would like to speak on the issue. I see that Kyle Gosson is here from Davies and Howe.
Good morning.
Good morning, Kyle.
Good morning, Mayor and members of council. I don't know if you can see me. There.
There you go.
Okay. Good morning. So as you saw, I provided submission in writing with respect to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. And I don't have anything to add to that. You've received the written submission. The fundamental concern is that as the size of a site increases, the size of an accessory structure that is permitted, we believe, should also increase, and that there shouldn't be a hard limit as set out in the proposed amendment. And that's fundamentally the concern in terms of accessory structures being permitted to be larger based on the size of the site that they're on, given that buffers, planning impacts can be accommodated on larger sites. And you have the further details of that submission in my letter. And so subject to any questions, I just attended in order to reiterate those concerns and to observe.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from council members, Mr. Gosson? Okay, Deputy Mayor Creelman?
This is more a question for Dave Trotman, mindful of Mr. Gosson's submission, but it is the case that this change would result in a situation where if somebody wanted to exceed the allowable square footage, it would simply be a minor variance application. Is that not the case?
So just to have clarity on what you mean, Deputy Mayor Creelman, you mean under the existing provisions or if the proposed ones were in effect?
Well, under either, if somebody wanted to do something larger than what is currently allowed, or if somebody wanted to do something larger than what is proposed and potentially brought in as an amendment, if you wanted to exceed it, it becomes a minor variance application.
That's correct. If there was any performance standard for that matter that doesn't meet the current provisions, would need a minor variance, which is a public process.
And a minor variance gives the town and indirectly council an opportunity to better weigh in on such things as appropriate buffering, site plan, that sort of thing.
It could, yes. There could be conditions attached with a minor variance decision of approval.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Early?
Just a caveat on that, actually, the minor variance applications would go to committee of adjustment, not to council. So they'd have the opportunity to weigh in on that, not necessarily council.
Yeah, I was careful to say indirectly, council. It's a committee of council.
I did pick that up. They are committee of council.
Okay. Any other discussion on the submissions that have been received? And there's no other comments from the public that I can see. Mr. Simpson, you haven't received anything else on this either?
No, there's been no additional comments received since the agenda was published.
Okay, thank you. So we want to go on to discuss the various options that have been provided to us regarding the amendment. Councillor Mantalo, did you want to start off the discussion?
Yes, Your Honor. Of the three options, I favor the option which is a graduated increase in the allowable size of the accessory structure based on the acreage up to, I think it's 600 meters. It's a similar formula that we have now, but the limitation is quite a bit lower. I think the current limitation is 1,500 meters. And, you know, we can, as mentioned, we can have structures larger than that if they're justified, and they just have to go through the committee to apply for them. I prefer that rather than the stepwise option. The stepwise option is for a less than 2 acres, 2 acres to 5 acres, and then over 5 acres. I think that the graduated makes it easier, and it makes it more understandable with respect to the size of the structure being relative to the size of the property. So I'd favor that option.
Okay. Any other discussion from council members? Deputy Mayor?
I prefer my very simple and sweet suggestion of no accessory building larger than the square footage of the residence, because after all, it is accessory to the residence by definition. But I could live with Ralph's point of view if my suggestion doesn't have any legs.
Okay. And what say you, Councillor Nix and Councillor Martin?
Well, I like the graduated approach that's in David Trotman's proposed amendment. And I would point out, I can't remember when this happened or whether you, some of you folks were on council, but we've had applications in the past for minor variants. Someone has a house and they want to build not a barn, what do you call it? A ring for horses to exercise, which can be quite large. There's been no problem allowing that. You know, people can ask for it and get it. So I like the 3-step approach that's in David's proposed amendment.
Okay, and Sharon?
Yes, I agree. I think I like the 3-step approach, and it's clearer to me anyway.
Okay. So with that, we can could close this public meeting and resume the regular meeting of council. Could I have someone to move that motion? Councillor Nix, and seconded by Councillor Mantalo. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, that's carried. So now we are resuming the regular council meeting. So on this issue, we do have a prepared motion that staff finalize the accessory building zoning bylaw amendment and bring back a bylaw at a future meeting. And I would assume that the direction would be with the gradual approach of the sizing. That's what I was hearing from the majority of council members. So if that is acceptable as a motion and says what we need to say, can I have a mover? Moved by Mantalo and seconded by Creelman. And is that sufficient, Mr. Trotman, to give you direction?
Yes, that is. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So if there's anyone opposed, oh, sorry, Mr. Early?
Yeah, I was going to say we will schedule to bring that back on the November 17th with the other planning matters.
Okay, thank you. And so with that, if anybody is opposed, please speak up. Otherwise, we are going to assume that that is carried. Okay, so now we're on to unfinished business and deferred item. The first one is the list of unfinished and deferred council business. Is there any additions, deletions, questions? Quiet bunch this morning. Yes, Councillor Magdalene.
Hi. Could we have an update on when we're next going to be dealing with the next step on the bylaw?
Well, we do have the item on the agenda today with the update from staff regarding what's been received. So we will have to discuss it at that point when it comes up on the agenda. Oh, sorry. Sorry, I'm sorry, I was talking about the order and you're talking about the actual bylaw. Mr. Early?
Yes, sir.
Well, I think as I've fairly been consistent through this, is I've been waiting for the bylaw or for the order to see its way through without changing the bylaw that order's related to. If you change your bylaw, the order's pretty much done.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else on unfinished business list? Seeing none, then we'll move on to the Main Street Revitalization Grant expenditures. And there's a report from Kim Heaton. And so, Kim, if you'd be able to add any further comments to your report.
Good morning, Council. Yes, we're all ready to roll with this. We've been working diligently. Thank you very much, Councilor Tilo, for an incredible amount of hard work that you've put into this. And the good news is that I did a little retweaking yesterday, and between the numbers that I gave you, I had put them in with 13% HST. And when I retweaked them yesterday after confirming with the treasurer, the amount we only get charged is 1.76%. So that was a nice savings there. Plus, there was some savings that came in unexpectedly for the signage for the hike and bike route. So the good news is that through the retweaking, I was able to add additional benches to the estimate. So we're good to go.
Councillor Nick?
Yeah, I think this is tremendous, and thanks, Ralph and Kim, for all your hard work, and I think Matt Donor. I tried to read the maps and visualize how the bike and hike route is going to work, and my eyesight isn't good enough to read those maps. What are these bike repair stations? First of all, I can't see them on the map, but what are they?
Bike repair stations are an idea that came to us after hiking the Georgian Trail up close to Collingwood. And along that trail, there are these repair stations that they have on, what do you call it? Really like I wish I was better with like a retractable cord.
A repair
what is
kit.
It? A repair kit, yeah. They're a repair kit that are found along the trails in certain locations that, for instance, if you get a flat, you're going to be able to blow up the tire. If your chain comes off, or if there's something that your bike, there's tools there. There's a repair kit. It's all encased in a metal box on retractable coils so that no one can take the tools away. Yeah, the first one I saw was up in Barrie on the Georgian Trail. Not Barrie, Collingwood.
I mean, I'm not sure why a cyclist just wouldn't carry his own tools to fix a flat or something. But that aside, where are they located? I can't see them on the map.
So let me just, we didn't put them on the map. So the tentative locations we have for those are Menora Park, Mono Center Park. I thought one at the Island Lake Community Trails parking lot, and we could put one either Purple Hill, Island Lake Family Park, or Lloyd Armstrong Park. I thought maybe one up in the north might be good for any cyclists going along that way. Again, these are, you know, my thoughts on where they should be located. The main thing is to get them in here.
Fred?
And if I'm not monopolizing the conversation, the other thing that I'm curious about is on the map, when the trail that goes through Purple Hill and comes down and joins or touches the Vicky Barron Trail, has it been clarified with that little point there is very dangerous, very steep drop. We did check with Credit Valley that they have a maintenance road just back of that. I can't tell from the scale of the map. Have we cleared it with Credit Valley that we can use that maintenance road for the trail? There is currently a gate across it with I can squeeze through it with a bike and get through there, but I think it needs to be improved. Anyway, where's the trail at that point? I can't tell from the map.
Kim, did you want to respond, or do you want Ralph to?
I'm going to let Councillor Mangtalo go ahead with that one.
Okay.
Yes, Fred, the trail does go through that access road, and the modifications to the gate area, that's under review with Bill Lidster at the moment. And if I could respond to your previous comment about the map and not being able to read it, the map will be on the, these are on the trailhead signage, and the map is 24 inches wide. With the input from Jake and Andrew, we spent quite a bit of time trying to figure out what would be the most legible map. And interestingly, the map, which is really a satellite view, seemed to be the one that you're most comfortable with. The actual information you need, such as where you are, for instance, on French Drive or on Huron, Ontario, is there. And the purpose of the map is not to give you a great deal of detail. Its purpose is basically to give you an idea that this is, in the case of the Fieldstone Purple Hill area, this is an east-west route, and the starting point is here and the finishing point is there. And if you want more information, there's a QR symbol on the map, so you can take your phone, you can orient it to the QR symbol, and up will come a detailed map from the town's website. Or you can go on the URL and get detailed information there.
Okay.
And I'd have to compliment Jake and Andrew for their work. They work together extremely well on this, and very, very professional, very skilled, and I really appreciated it. I was getting emails from Jake at 8 o'clock at night, which was beyond the usual oil burning time for working, and I appreciate it. Thanks.
Okay. So if there's nothing further for questions, we do have a motion that council receive the Director of Recreation's report on the Main Street Revitalization Fund dated October 22nd, 2020. Could I have a mover, please? Moved by Martin and seconded by Creelman. So anyone opposed to accepting the report? Seeing none, that's carried. Thank you very much, Kim. Okay, so on to the item 3, fill removal order for 833231 fourth line EHS. And so we have a report from Mr. Early regarding the status of things to date. And I open, is there anything else that you wanted to add, Mark?
No, I don't have anything further than what I had on Thursday when I wrote the report.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Nix?
Yeah, I had some concerns with the report. I mean, in a sense, I'm a bit confused. We have a report from our engineer that the fill has been removed and there's no contamination. But our removal order asked for some specific things, particularly documentation that the trucks actually took the fill out. And what confuses me, and Ralph, if you want to jump in here, because I talked to Ralph about this yesterday. The information we got on October the 16th, in terms of the number of truckloads and the truck ticket numbers, is different than in the report that's before us today. And I don't understand if these trucks actually moved and had tickets, how that information could be changed after the fact. So it confuses me. I mean, well, I'll just leave it at that. I really wonder if these aren't just made up numbers. Although having said that, we do have a report from our engineer that the fill was removed. So I'm not sure how important it is, but I don't understand how we can have two reports within the space of 2 weeks, and they give us different information on those reports about the number of truck movements.
Okay. Mr. Early, is there any further information that you might have regarding the difference in the reports?
Not in the difference of the reports. I did ask Mr. Rich and his consultant to provide clarification as to the way bills, the tickets, the process, and what you got back was, or what I provided you was what I had received. That's the clarification I received from the Ritchie camp on how the ticket and trucking process worked.
Okay.
And can I ask, did you ask them why the information we got today is different than the information we got on the 16th of the month? For example, on the 16th of the month, we were told on August 24th, they had written in 30 truckloads, ticket number 459 to ticket number 486. If you actually count the number of tickets, there's only 28 tickets there. So I don't see how that can be 30 truckloads. And then in today's report, they say on August 24th, it was actually ticket number 459 to number 488. So they've added 2 more tickets to the 24th, and that does add to 30 loads. I don't understand. Did you ask them why there's such a discrepancy in their reports?
No, I received the report Thursday morning, and provided it to you. So,
well, then I would ask your worship, the rest of council. I honestly don't know the answer to this, but we've issued an order, and it required certain documents. I'm not sure we've been given that information.
Okay. Councillor Mangtolo?
Just to back up a bit, we were unhappy the last time that we had clear documentation that the fill had been removed, and we asked for that. And there was the opportunity for that documentation to be provided by a number of different sources, including the 4 items that Mark just mentioned, and also a report from the Mr. Ritchie's QP. So what we did receive was a receipt from the receiving location, and that was at some variance, as Fred has just mentioned, with the previous reports. So it was hard to, I kind of ignored the previous reports, the so-called, I think it was a delivery tracker, and a couple of other reports, one for Barry and one for Oro, which were written on a notebook without signatures and without anything to validate them. So I kind of ignore those. But given the opportunity that Mr. Ritchie had to provide us with good documentation, I'm disappointed. All we have is a receipt which partially covers the loads. It doesn't cover all 65 or 66 loads. It covers, I think, 50, 58. We don't have documentation for, actually my number's not quite right, but we don't have documentation that's good for about 11 loads. And in Mr. Ritchie's letter, he says that he has tickets for all of the truckloads, and they were not provided to us. I can't understand that, because if we had the tickets, individual tickets, then we could verify what was taken, when, and where it went to, and that would be a very easy way for us to have assurance. We and the surrounding neighbors really want that kind of assurance. Furthermore, his QP has not provided the document that is mentioned in Mark's report, and so I think it's still very incomplete. There's not enough information there to be assured that the fill was removed, and it goes back into Mr. Ritchie's lap to do that. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Deputy Mayor?
I agree with everything that has been said. I would also add that I thought we had some assurances that the QP for Mr. Ritchie's side would be present at the time of the removal of the soil, and also I think there are some concerns raised as to our observation of the removal of the soil. So this matter, to my mind, is still outstanding.
Okay. And Councillor Nix?
Yeah, I guess I'm repeating myself a bit, but just to come back a bit, John and Ralph, on the other side, we do have our engineering firm giving us a report with their professional stamp on it, saying that the fill was removed and there's no contamination. So that's why I'm a bit confused. Is that enough to overlook the possible discrepancies in the reports we've got in compliance with our order? Is that enough to simply say, okay, let's be done with it, let's move on? Our engineer says the fill was removed and there's no contamination. I'm putting that out as a question.
So how would you like to proceed? We do have Gord Finiak on the call today. I don't know if it's appropriate for him to respond to that question, or Mr. Early, do you have any guidance?
Well, I haven't heard council express any concerns with the report that came from the contamination component side of things. Certainly Jim Walls and Eugene were out there to monitor and have been out on the site randomly throughout the process. And you have Mr. Walsh report that the fill's been removed. I think what this is coming down to is evidence of trucking and the fill physically leaving the site. And I think that rests with Mr. Ritchie, not with the town, where, you know, there's only so far we can babysit this thing through the process.
Yep. So with that in mind, yes, Councillor Magdalene?
Just to follow up on Fred's comment, and I think it's valid, because we do have, that's why we hire our engineering firm to give us advice. But in this situation, we've asked for documentation as well, and that's not been provided. So I think it's back to Mr. Ritchie. Either he provides the documentation, or we just can't move on this.
Okay. And so with that, Councillor Martin, did you have anything to add?
No, I think it's all been said. I think it does fall back to Mr. Ritchie to supply more information. I think that our engineers have taken care of the, if there was any contamination, they've signed off on all of those things. It's really difficult because I don't know how they're ever going to show. It seems a little bit lackadaisical on how these tickets are out there and all these other things. So it might be just the way they work. It might not be anyone's fault that we don't have that information. But I think it would be of value to have it, or explain why it isn't there.
Okay. So, yes, Councillor Maitallow?
I'd just like to read you a sentence from Mr. Ritchie's letter of October 22nd. He says, "We also have tickets that were purchased and paid for from the fill site. These tickets have the same information as a waybill or bill of lading. These tickets are specific to the fill site and also show the job site pickup address." So these tickets, we should see them. We should provide them for us, and that would give us the information that we need.
Thank you. Mr. Early?
Last I heard in my discussion with Mr. Ritchie, they were looking at trying to obtain the tickets. I guess there's an issue when they're provided from the truckers or at the truck, between the interface between the trucker and the landowner. And I was also told that I'd be getting a comment from their QP, and I haven't seen that either.
Okay. So we definitely have not received all the information that has been requested. And yes, Councillor Nix?
And having said all of that, we do have our engineer online. I would like to know from Gord, are we beating this to death? He signed, Gord, you have signed the report that says the fill has been removed and there's no contamination. Are we just beating a dead horse here? Should we just go with your report and say, fine, the job's been done?
You're muted, Gord.
Sorry, that puts a lot on me, doesn't it? No, everything I've heard about the documentation, I think, is valid. You've been told there's documentation out there. I don't see why council would do anything until it sees that documentation. It exists. It should exist, or else, as Mr. Early has said, an explanation as to why it doesn't exist. But we believe it does, and that aspect of it, I think, is still forthcoming. So as far as I'm concerned, we stand behind our report. We followed protocols in where we've taken our samples. We've sampled for every kind of possible contaminant that we think is reasonable, and we totally stand behind that. Council has that report, and I think it needs documentation of the trucks to go with it in order to sign off.
Yep.
That's enough for me.
Yeah.
So that's understood that, yes, Deputy Mayor?
I know at the last meeting I raised the possibility of the trucking logs, and if Mr. Ritchie really wanted to demonstrate that everything was removed, a combination of the tickets and, if accessible, and I don't know whether they are or not, the trucking logs might make a compelling case that in fact everything has been removed. But until I see further information, as I say, I don't think this is complete.
Okay, thank you. So what I'm hearing is direction to staff is to again request that Mr. Ritchie provide us with the information we have asked for, and until such time we will be awaiting that before we make a decision on whether or not the order has been complied with. Okay, thank you very much, Gord, for being here for this. So if there's nothing further, then we'll carry on then with section 4, the 2021 budget and department capital projects. So we will start with Mr. Luca's administration, capital budget, and special projects.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. Can anyone hear me?
Yeah, I can hear
Okay.
you.
Okay, good. Well, before we deliver the full budget draft package, Council will give staff guidance in preparation of the total budget, and one of the steps is capital projects by department. And of course, the next item on one of the items on the agenda is determining the inflation rate. Now, I'll start off with the administration budget. The first three items on the list, Council has seen before. The first item, every year we do upgrade our hardware and software systems in our computer systems. My report says that the amount of 30,000 is maintained from 2020. I apologize, that's actually not correct. Last year was 25,000. It has been increased to 30,000, and the reason for that is we're experiencing across the board different cost increases. More people obviously are working from home because of COVID, and that reflects in supply and demand, and costs are going up. The next two items, the dark trace security software, 15,265. That's our annual license fee. That is money well spent. We've already had examples this year in 2020 where the software has caught a couple of attempts at getting into our systems through either email. Generally, it is through email or either through some other form of attack. So it is working. If there's any complaint, perhaps, is maybe it's catching too many things, and legit emails that look a little sketchy get stopped, but I'd rather catch too much than not enough. And the next item is the net license fee for our backup disaster recovery software, where our data is being uploaded to the cloud. A new item we're proposing for 2021 is a fire hall replacement. The cost is $3,000. It's below our threshold cost of $5,000, but I wanted to make council aware that we are taking that step. It's a very important piece of our security. It is a piece of hardware. Generally, it gets replaced every 4 to 5 years, and in 2021, it's now at 5 years. It is working fine, but we're just trying to avoid for minimal costs, being shut down, and then we can't operate for a few days until the hardware is brought in to replace the defaulted one. That's my report. If council has any questions, I'll be pleased to answer them.
You don't want to talk about the office light fixtures?
Whoops, sorry. I printed it off double-sided. I'm only reading the first. Okay, my apologies. Trying to save paper. Yes, the light fixtures. That is a big item. We're finding, as the memo says, the light fixtures were installed in the expanded part of the office, and of course in the old part. Throughout the office over the last couple of years, lights are flickering. If you go over Christine's desk, her light is on, her light is off. We brought an electrician in, and it's been determined that they are running very hot to the point that they are burning out. It is a fire hazard. So at the very least, we need to replace all the upstairs. They are on, or obviously more often than the downstairs. Matt Donor looked into the life of these fixtures, and they're pretty much approached like when they were installed back in 2010. So they're basically 10 years old. They're at the end of their life expectancy anyways. Newer ones will have more light hours to be on and should last longer, but definitely need replacement.
Okay. Deputy Mayor.
I'm not doubting any research into life expectancy, but these things are 10 years old. My goodness, in our homes, we've got light fixtures that are 30, 40 years old and they're still fine. You know, I don't know who the electrician was who did this work, but, you know, are we pursuing whether we have any redress here? Are we getting some second opinions? And as for the estimated cost, is this going to go out to tender? Are we going to have competitive bids, or are we simply going to it is just shy of $50,000. So I was really surprised to see this.
Okay. Kim, you wanted to respond?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that it's not so much the electrician that you know, that is the challenge here. It's the actual light fixtures themselves. It's what you call the drivers that is a part of the type of light that was originally installed. So the electrician has been doing everything in his power to keep these things up and running, but it's the actual driver in the fixture that is the problem, not how they've been wired.
So we bought.
Why are we replacing the entire fixture and not simply the component that's failing?
Because the component that's in there is no longer available. That company that these fixtures were purchased from is no longer around.
Okay. Councillor Nix?
Just to provide some historical context, I was on a subcommittee when those lights were shown to us, and they were supposed to be the next best thing to sliced bread. And I'm quite disappointed that they've lasted 10 years and we have to replace them all. I mean, Bob Mitchell and I sat on a subcommittee, Kim, and we had one of those sample lights brought in, and it was going to be the greatest thing. And now they've lasted 10 years, and it's going to cost us $45,000 to replace them. It doesn't inspire confidence.
Mark?
Yeah, this is a matter that's just come up, Deputy Mayor Creelman. We certainly appreciate your comments as well. I think at a staff level, we were very surprised too. And so we have just got this information. We'll be investigating it further too. Our initial estimates is that's what is going to be required. If we can, you know, save money anywhere, we obviously will. And if we don't need to replace it, we won't. But at this point in time, that's the information we have today.
Okay. Deputy Mayor?
If I can ask, are all the fixtures acting the same way, or are just some acting in this fashion, and maybe we could look at replacing those and replacing others as they fail?
Mark?
It's my understanding that the ones that, so first of all, within the office itself, the problem lights are consistent. It's always the same lights. So if we can do that, we will. My understanding is when they've looked at the lights now, they're saying that I think it's the transformer associated with the individual lights are what is the fire hazard for overheating purposes. So that's the issue when it comes to being a fire hazard within the roof line. But again, this is relatively new information to us, and we'll investigate that further.
Okay. Okay, any more?
Can I suggest?
Yes, go
Can
ahead.
I suggest that if there's a fire hazard associated with those lights, we aren't the only customer that company had, and maybe we should check with CSA to see if there's any warnings issued on that equipment.
Okay. So if there's nothing further, thank you, Les, for your report.
Thank you.
Now we're going to go on with the Public Works capital budget. So Matt, good morning.
Morning, Madam Mayor, Council. My report is very in line with Mike's report from 2020. I don't know if there's anything else I really need to, if you want me to go over item by item. The only real change is the flipping Bridge 5 with Bridge 9 with Bridges 10 and 11. The reason there was just to try to have a less of a financial impact for next year, for 2021. Bridge 9 will cost a little bit more to replace than Bridges 10 and 11 together as a rehabilitation. During the 2020 bridge inspections, 10 and 11 did have a lower BCI, or Bridge Condition Index, so it kind of supported that that approach. As well, the only other item I just wanted to chat about quickly was the grader. Obviously, as you remember, likely recall, we tendered the 1997, the replacement for the 1997 Champion grader in 2020, and the costs were significantly higher than expected. So we've included some additional budget recommendation of $200,000 to increase that. Hopes that we could maybe retender in January, February of 2021, in hopes that we get maybe a more competitive price on that.
Okay. So you're open for questions then, Councillor Nix?
Mike, Fred.
Here. Sorry. Thanks for the report, Matt. For the purposes of today's discussion, I'm prepared to go for it, but I would put out a warning that the Public Works capital budget is up by about 7.5% over last year, and which, it's not enormous, but it is a fair number of dollars. I've looked at every item you've got. Yes, I'm not going to comment on what we have to put aside for bridges or that new grader. There is one item in your list where we do have some options, and that's the blind line rehabilitation. And I think you've got 400,000. Without looking it up, you've got about $400,000 in there. So I'm not making any decisions today, but by the time this all gets folded into a full budget, be warned that that might be something I'm going to be looking at a bit more carefully if our whole budget increases too much.
Yep.
We don't have to. I know you've done the drainage work on the blind line. I know if Mike were here, we have this argument every year. It's important to do it because it becomes an alternative route for Highway 10 if there's a problem. But it's not the end of the world if we don't do it for the next 2, 3, or 4 or 5 years. Okay, people can drive on gravel.
Yep, 100%, Fred. And like I said, I'm sure blind line is one of the ones we get a lot of calls about as far as potholes, and we have been addressing that with limestone. I think that's likely going to be one of the roads we do, although we don't necessarily want to put a limestone approach on it with the material, an upgraded material, if we're going to replace it. If the thought is that we are going to be replacing it in 5 years or so, 400,000. We're finding the cost of doing business with respect to materials and construction costs have significantly increased. So that $2 million is, like I mentioned in the report, approximate. It's an estimated at $2 million. It's higher than what it was when we first obviously did the engineering estimate back when we did the contract documents, but it's projected, and I think it's still a good road. It does see an increase of traffic, and we are counting it quite often with our biannual traffic counting spring and fall. So we're getting that data, and that'll help support anything we bring forward in the future.
Just for the historical record, when Mike first put this project in front of us 5, 6, 7 years ago, the total cost wasn't much over $1 million, and that included the drainage work you had to do. And that was done in next year's budget for what, 300,000 or something. And now it's still $2 million to finish this project. So So it makes some of us on council nervous.
For sure. We like I said, the cost of doing business seems to be going up, whether it's pandemic related or just, you know, when we tender projects, you know, we always try to push them out January, February. The other side of that is too, we added, for the blind line, we did upgrade the culvert crossings from CSPs, corrugated steel pipes to precast box culverts. So, you know, we got the longevity with those culverts, and, you know, we shouldn't have to be replacing those for 75 to 100 years, whereas, you know, CSPs are in the range of, you know, 20 to 30. So there was that cost that we, you know, incurred with that project this year, and that drove the cost up a little bit. But again, the 2 million is maybe a little bit high, but it's obviously what we're seeing with the construction from year to year. It's growing, and this year was, well, you stop with Island Lake Park and all that stuff, you know, the grading and everything like that. The cost of materials and doing business is a lot greater, finding.
I hope the car drivers 75 years from now, when they drive over those box culverts, appreciate the fact that it's my taxes that paid for it.
Sharon? This is just a curiosity. The single lane bridges, when they are replaced, do they have to be 2-lane bridges? Is that
No.
They don't have to be?
No. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, it's just that it isn't about the cost, but people are always complaining about speeding, and believe me, they slow these. Having a single lane bridge does slow people down, and it's country. It's I know it doesn't classify under the cultural umbrella, but I really like them, and I'm quite glad to hear that they don't have to be 2-lane bridges, which I imagine would add an incredible amount more cost to get the space in there.
Yeah, these structures, both 10 and 11, were rehabilitated, I believe, sometime in the late 80s, early 90s, utilizing the existing wing walls, abutments, and footings.
Yeah.
And we will be using those existing wing walls, abutments, and footings again. And it restricts us to how much we could really expand on width and road platform width there. So it will eliminate the road current load capacities that are posted on either side of the structures. Because the limited traffic on these roads, we will get some width. We have the ability to expand the overall road platform on both of them by approximately 1 meter, if I recall correctly. It's about, so we're gaining a little bit of road width there, and we're upgrading the safety on either side and the barriers. And yeah, and the ultimate goal here is to remove the load capacities, because they were currently, you know, they're restricted. So.
Okay, that's good, thanks. Okay, Councillor Mantalo?
Thanks for your report, Matt. It's a big one. I'd just like to ask you about Bridge 5. When this was considered, I think it's in your report as well, there were 3 options, I think. One was to replace it, which is what the recommendation is. The other one's to rehab it, and the other one was to close the area. And I'm not advocating any of these in particular. I'm looking for your thinking as to why would you go for replacing it rather than closing it, which is I guess it's the economic, the most desirable. As I understand, this is a road that's not used very much. In fact, it's a more or less a 3-season road. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's definitely up for consideration, Ralph, whether or not that's the council wants to pursue that option. Public Works staff, the operators definitely use this road during the summer months, spring, fall months to get the graders down to the south end. So it is utilized quite a bit by Public Works. The ultimate goal of Public Works is just to keep our existing road network open, and that's kind of the approach that Mike and I have always kind of taken. whatever's been open in the past, keep it open. And if there's a room for improvement for increasing road platform width or safety within the area, we obviously try to do so. The topography in here is quite challenging in the sense where, you know, everybody's been down this stretch of road. It's very meandering and it's difficult for vehicles. We get a lot of vehicles, even though the signage is there coming off of Highway 10. If you get a closure south of 10 side road, we do see a lot of traffic try to get through there, and instead of going further east of first line. But yeah, the ultimate goal is to try to keep roads open and rehab when we can. This year was the latest inspection of the structure. It was rehabilitated in the late 90s, and it's kind of on the cusp of, you know, not being able to rehabilitate properly without putting bad money over good money. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, Ralph.
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, Don?
Just to continue the discussion, Bridge 5 was rehabilitated when I was last on council, and rehabilitation is really not an accurate description. We virtually rebuilt that thing, and to think that it's only lasting 25 years is really quite shocking. I think we need to have a really thoroughgoing discussion as to whether or not we simply abandon that bridge, given the fact that it is a seasonal road, given the fact that it is a challenging topography, as you indicate. You know, I worry that we're putting good money after bad, because 25 years isn't terribly long even for a rehabilitated structure.
Yep. No, it's said 20 years is about standard for that type of bridge structure, John. It's the existing barrel, which is the underside arch of the culvert, and the footings are, you know, original. They weren't overlaid or reinforced in any manner during the 1999 rehabilitation. And because of the shale river bed there, there's a lot of freeze thaw that occurs, and it breaks up the footings. So right now the refacing, I believe the refacing of the footings occurred in 1999, and they have broken up and they're undermined. So the wing walls that were done too, they have a lot of freeze thaw and have seen a lot of salts, you know, mixed in over the years, and they've deteriorated as well. The guide rail has been run over quite a few times, and we've kind of held off replacing that just because it's so tight there. We don't want to replace it and then have it damaged again and again. But I would say that the rehabilitation and the timing of the length of that and what we got out of that rehabilitation was probably accurate if you go by the MTO degradation curves. And that's, you know, we typically hit an index level, and it drops down over a certain period of time, and that's where we have to do another rehab. But there's only so much you could do depending on the type of structure. And once they hit a certain point in time, like this is probably a vintage 1920 to 30 structure, so it's 100 years old, I would say, approximately.
Well, I stand to be correct. You know, I stand to be corrected then, but I remember at the time we thought we were getting a lot more life out of this structure than simply 25 years. But if that's what it is, that's what it is. But I think we need to have a thoroughgoing debate about what we do next, including analysis of traffic counts and so forth.
For sure.
Okay, any further questions of Matt? Seeing none then, thank you very much, Matt. So now we'll move on to Kim's department.
Just going through it, the recreation budget. The focus this year in recreation is basically maintenance and trying to respond to the increased usage of outdoor amenities right now. which was steadily increasing prior to COVID, but has certainly taken a true upswing in the last 8 months, how much our parks are being and trails are being used. So that's where the capital budget for recreation is focused this year. You know, just going through it quickly, the roof at Menorah, this is the year it does need to be replaced. I've been watching it over the last few years, along with the gentleman who's always replaced our roofs, and you know, we've managed to hold off, but next year should be the year to replace the roof at Menorah. The timber retaining walls on the west side, I've put those in because we did do the east side this past year. They've turned out, they're phenomenal. They're really holding well, look great. The timber walls along the west side are starting to decline, and if we don't do it next year, it will be put back on the budget in upcoming years. So just kind of letting you know about that. I guess the next one is to, under Mono Community Center, I have the repairs to the leak on the northwest outside wall, and it said awaiting quotes. So a couple of the quotes have come in over the weekend, and I'm happy to let you know that that now is an operating budget issue. So we're not going to have to worry about that in capital. They're coming in a lot lower than what we anticipated. So really pleased. The upstairs kitchen at Mono Center, it is the original kitchen from when the hall or the kitchen was first built back in 1987, and you can certainly see the wear and tear on those cabinets. Everything out at the hall has been updated, and this would be a project that could be done by staff. We did the downstairs kitchen at Menorah. It turned out great. So this is something where we have in-house labor to look after it, and would just be a basically purchasing the supplies for it. Going over to Mono Center Park, I wanted to put the capital grant expenditures in there for next year. If we are successful in getting the grant for the 2 new tennis courts, this would be the portion of the town that we would be responsible for paying for all of the drawings, permits, etc., that would have to be done next year prior to the courts being built in 2022. So keeping our fingers crossed that we are going to be successful in that grant. It's great. It's a large project, and Mono's portion on that is only 13.34% of the actual cost of the project if it does go through. So that's phenomenal if we are successful. So still waiting to hear on that one. I guess the next best thing flipping over to the Fieldstone Park, and then that's just to explain about the landscaping. The landscaping for that park, the budget for it was originally rolled in with the Island Lake Park tender. We figured due to the efficiency of cost that would be the best place to put it. Well, now that the Island Lake Park tender did not go through last year, there is no money right now allotted to the Fieldstone Parkette for the landscaping. So the amount we had originally thought about for that park was $10,000. So it's just basically asking council to be okay with transferring $10,000 out of the original, I believe it was $80,000 or $90,000 that we had in the Island Lake Park, and just putting it over to Fieldstone.
Kim?
Yep. Councillor Nix?
That then could come out of DC chart.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, that's correct. Yes. Well, I mean, I'm jumping out of turn here, but I'm 99% correct, to be confirmed by our treasurer. And then the next item is the Island Lake Park wanting to be prepared and be ready to have that retendered in January in order to hopefully get some more competitive bids on that. Staff have met and put forward some reduced scope of work for council's consideration on that park. That has been laid out on the next page, the items that were, Councillor Nix?
In the Island Lake Park, I understand most of it. I'm not sure I understand the word provisional when you use it. Does that mean you are or are not?
Provision. Sure.
You're putting them in, but we might not necessarily put the street lights up, but we're putting the conduits in, are we? Is that what it means?
Provisional means if there is enough money, we'll do it. That's what that means. That's kind of the to remain is like, let's go forward with these projects. The provisional is if we feel that there's enough money, these would be the next in line that we would like to see happen. So when you do the tender under provisional, you write the tender and you say, okay, bid on all of these things, which are the to remain we want to know. And then we also want a cost from you for these provisional items. In other words, if the tenders come in at a good price and we have enough money in our budget, we'll then go forward with some of these provisional items that we've written into the tender.
Okay.
What will not be written into the tender are the items under the to be removed column, and those will be done at a future date, possibly. Okay. And then moving on to trails, we've got additional maintenance on the trails. We're finding that trails are keeping us quite busy, and a few years back, probably 5-6 years back, I did ask council at that time for a utility vehicle for the trails. Council decided not to go ahead with that. Since then, we are steadily increasing our work on the trails, and it's all being done on foot. Staff are walking in, carrying alone their personal protective equipment, supplies needed to maintain the trails, never mind the lumber, everything else, and it's all being walked in. So we're really getting to the point where the utility vehicle not only is something that we could use on the trails, we can use this on the baseball diamonds. We've now purchased a heavy duty steel mat that can be dragged behind this vehicle, and it helps in the grading of the trails. It would help in the grading of the baseball diamonds, cutting back on the need for outside contractors to come in and grade our diamonds in the spring. We'll now be able to do that ourselves, and that alone is close to a $3,000 savings that we pay the outside contractors. So hoping council will truly consider this utility vehicle to help staff out for both safety and efficiency purposes. Brad?
I would just point out, Kim, that a week ago, my wife and I helped the Bruce Trail rebuild the boardwalk south of Dunby Road. It was something like 1.2 kilometers in and out, and we hauled all the old lumber out by hand and all the new logs and lumber in by hand, and we did the whole thing for probably less than $500. I don't know the exact cost, but anyway, yeah, you guys can't walk. You want one of these little machines. That's fine. I understand you're getting on in age. We'll maybe consider it.
Well, I was going to speak to the issue of the utility vehicle as well, and it occurred to me that we may well have access to a utility vehicle through the ski club. I understand that they have such a vehicle, and maybe when we need it, we can work out an arrangement to rent it or borrow it. I stand to be corrected as to whether that's a possibility, but it strikes me that $16,500 is an awful lot for a utility vehicle, and I noticed the material provided to us is for a John Deere, and they don't even have a dealership in the town anymore. So I would suggest that we do have alternatives. I'm not arguing that we need to schlep everything up and down the trails. The other comment I'd make with regard to some of the items here is, where is the urgency to do things like the kitchens when we aren't even renting these facilities out right now? I just wonder whether that, I mean, I know at some point we're going to have to address that, but why now? Why not when we're back to normal?
And that's a great question. I think it's a two-sided question, and my response to that is, with the halls not being rented, not in use, it's the perfect time to do it, because we're not working around having renters in on a constant basis. So a large job like redoing kitchens, where kitchens are a big part of a rental, when we do not have the renters in, it makes the job so much easier to be able to do. It's almost the perfect timing. I certainly understand your question, Deputy Mayor. It makes total sense. On the other hand, though, it is the perfect time to do it as far as the maintenance with not having anyone in the hall. So I do understand what you're saying, but that's why I did put it in right now.
Fred?
I really like John's idea that maybe Mono Nordic and the town could see if there could be some cooperation for that utility vehicle. Neither the town nor Mono Nordic need to use that vehicle every day of the year. Surely some arrangement could be worked out if the town had to rent it or whatever it is. I mean, we give the club a pretty good rate on the rental of Menora Park Pavilion. Uh-oh, here comes Sharon.
Sharon?
I'm sorry, did I interrupt you, Councillor Nix? Okay. As far as the ATV that is belongs to Mono Nordic, I have confirmed that for certainly any work here, that could be used, but also if it's work to be done on these trails, the guy who cuts the grass uses a tractor, which means a truck could easily be on these trails. Not that we want to encourage other people to do that, but a town truck could do that. And the smaller trails are easily accessed. As far as taking it off the property, that would mean there'd have to be a trailer and probably some other things. But I think it's within the realm of possibility to use that ATV, which, by the way, with tracks, it has tracks as well as tires, costs the club $12,000. And I would say during these days that it's used every day right now. And it's also, if Dave was the one who was doing it, he knows the codes to the new building, and the new building would, for most, it depends on where it is on the trails that they've been working. For the most part, that's where it will be stored. So there's a possibility. It deserves a discussion with them, those guys. And
it's great, and I can certainly talk to Ski Club in that regard. We would be looking at using it on our tracks as well as Menora. So Shelley Anderson, 1926, the first line, those are all places where Aiken's track is another big one where we are in there doing a lot of heavy garbage removal. Aiken's track is a notorious, it seems, dumping ground for big ticket items. So we're in there removing items like that. We're doing a lot of, down trees, removing them, getting them off the trails, especially after windstorms like we had the other night. So that would be something that I will certainly talk to the ski club about. but we would pretty much be using it on quite a continual basis as well.
Yeah. Well,
Trail maintenance is a big part of, is becoming a big part of the job.
Yeah.
John?
I was just going to say that if we don't already have a trailer to float equipment from one location to the next, a trailer is certainly cheaper than an ATV. And I'm sure that some kind of schedule can be worked out with the ski club so that you can share the vehicle.
Yes, the price that I gave you is inclusive of tax. Actually, it's probably higher because I did go with 13% tax on the purchase. So that would be a reduction by almost 11%. And it also included a trailer, knowing that we would have to, move the utility vehicle from one trail to the other and how we were going to do it. So that does include the cost of a trailer, which brings more into line what the ski club paid for their utility vehicle.
Okay. Sharon?
I suppose I should remind everyone that I am not speaking for the ski club, and it's something that would have to be negotiated with them.
Okay. Ralph?
Two comments. These vehicles are extremely useful. I think you're getting a four-wheel drive one, and you have a box in the back that'll hold a half ton. You'll find it extremely useful on trails. I have a question about the roof replacement for the Manor Pavilion at $28,000. Could you explain what's going to be done there in light of the fact that we have, I think, 2 roofs of different ages of them?
Certainly. So the $28,000 covers replacing the entire roof. The second roof that you're talking about is on the north side of the building, a small portion of the north side, basically the gable part on the north side of the building. It was done back in 2013, I believe. But in order to have consistency of the look and for the shingles to match, of course we would buy the same type, but due to fading and wear and tear, if we were to replace just the older portion, which I'll tell you is approximately 75% of the roof, without doing the newer portion, then we're going to have issues with, is the newer portion 5 years from now going to start leaking, or 10 years from now? What's it going to look like as far as consistency of color? So for the additional extra cost, which was about $2,000, maybe $3,000 to do that extra roof, that extra portion of the roof, it was, would you not do the whole thing at the same time?
And the problem is the part was was replaced in 2003. It's getting into trouble right now. That's the reason for going ahead.
Yes, if you were to look at the roof, you'll see them all curled, and they're getting very, what's the word?
Brittle.
Brittle, thank you. That's exactly the word I'm looking for, brittle.
Okay. Sharon?
With regard to the roof, we have tennis court reserves, playground equipment reserves. I'm surprised we don't have a reserve amount for roofs.
We do. We save every year for the roof.
Okay, so the 28, whatever it was, the 28,000, would not some of the money come out of reserves? Is that what you're counting on? This is 28 for now because we have reserves, because 28, whatever it is, for a whole roof is quite a deal. For the size of that roof, I would say it's a deal. So there must be money coming from somewhere else.
No, that's the cost to do the entire roof. That is the cost. We have an incredible roof, who's always done our roofs for us. That's the price he has given me. I updated it with him again this year, and he's very you know, very adamant that that's what the cost, you know, that's a good price to put in. You said something else there a second ago. Oh, as far as, yes, we've been saving money every year, and we do that on all our buildings for the roof reserve. So it would have to be confirmed with our treasurer exactly how much money at this point has been saved for this project, but I think the majority of it has. So that would come through when Les gives you the full budget. He'll show you exactly how much money has to be spent versus what, or new money versus what we already have in reserves for the project.
Hey, Sharon?
So while we're on the topic of Menorah Park, Kim's quite right about the increase in usage because we live in such proximity to the trails. We notice that there are a lot more people on these trails. And I would say it was 36,000, the count was 36,000 in 2012. I'd say we have easily doubled that. The number of people coming through the park is incredible, which brings me to the washroom. And there have been a number of things floated, and quite frankly, Kim and I have talked about this. And one of the better ideas, I believe, is to rebuild, or not rebuild, but refurbish to prepare the old washroom that's out by the gazebo. There's water to it. I don't think it's been looked at, but we certainly know who closed everything off when it became a storage area instead of a washroom. And I think there's a great possibility for a reasonable amount of money to have an all-year washroom similar to Cardinal Woods, or so a code or whatever, and Cardinal Woods and Mono Center. I think there's a real possibility of, and the roof's good on that building, by the way, just to, you know.
We just had it done.
Oh, okay. That would be one. Okay.
Yeah.
But I think that to look at a plan for doing that, I know that there were concerns, and the reason that the porta potty went there in the first place when we really weren't sure about the COVID thing, that because we didn't want people using the forest or the area for a toilet. And I think that pretty well solves it. And with the rental of a porta potty, the expense of some of the other beautiful things that can be built, I think it's really good to look at a structure we already have. Kim, got anything?
Yeah, I mean, you and I have talked about it. We've talked about other options as well. And every time we talk about another option, you and I keep circling back to, you know, well, what's wrong with you know, like opening back up those washrooms that were originally there, you know, 25 years ago. We've already got the surface there. We can certainly, that washroom is large enough, or that building is large enough to accommodate storage and just even a one unit washroom. Making it accessible for 12 months of the year is a perfect scenario. We've talked about, you know, ways to accommodate, to do the setup versus so that we're not intruding with weddings, that kind of thing. I have placed a very preliminary phone call to the people that originally shut down the washroom, and they are taking just a quick look out there to see whether or not it's even a feasible idea for us to get water back out there, and whether or not the septic would work as well. So I'm waiting on to hear back from them. Just one point of clarification: the washroom at Cardinal Woods, it does get shut down in the winter months because that washroom is not winter, or that washroom is not heated. So we do shut that down in the winter months, but we do keep the washroom at Mono Center open. We've got a little space heater in there, and that washroom is available to the public 12 months of the year.
Okay. Fred?
Kim, just to sum up, I was trying to use my adding machine here, but I've got confused. I need three numbers from you. Your total capital budget, the total amount that comes from DC reserves, and the amount that comes from other reserves. The balance then would be how much your capital budget is adding to the 2021 budget. Have you got those three numbers?
I don't have them off the top of my head. The reserve number will have to come from the treasurer. I mean, I can very quickly use my adding machine here, but yeah, those are all numbers that come through when we do the actual. We submit the actual full budget to you, and then the treasurer puts all those things together for you. Yeah.
I'll wait then, but that's what I was trying to calculate and I couldn't.
Okay.
Deputy Mayor?
I don't know that this is the appropriate time to raise this, but I think I've been out to look at the washroom situation at Menora, and I think there is an opportunity to safely utilize the downstairs washroom for the skiers in such a fashion that they can enter the building, use the washroom, and leave the building without entering other parts of the building. But I would suggest leaving this for another day. But I think we do need to address the issue of washroom facilities for the people who use the ski club as well as the trails.
Yeah, I think this was more put in for the actual trail use, the hikers, the bikers, the increased usage that we're getting out there. I mean, it's not in there. It's just something that Councillor Martin and I have been kind of tossing around.
Okay, so if there's no further questions of Kim, that leaves us with a motion that council receives as
Excuse me.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Mayor Ryan. I'm just wondering if council wants me to pursue the feasibility of looking at outdoor washrooms or refurbishing the outdoor washroom at Menora. And if so, if you want me to look at the feasibility, how deep into that do you want me to go, or do you want me to just, do a follow up on a quick phone call with the people who did close it, or do you want me to get the engineers involved? And would you want me to do something for just, to get prices for 2021 budget to think whether or not you want to pursue it in 2022? It's just, those kind of questions I need to know how to pursue, if you even want me to pursue it.
Okay, Sharon?
Sorry, I wasn't prepared. I certainly don't think it hurts to have a good look at this. It's something that's there for all 4 seasons. And if we think of how much does it cost to keep the porta potty out there for what do we do? 4 months? 3 months?
We put the porta potty out there in May, and I normally remove it the end of October. So what is that? 5 to 6, 7 months, something like that. And we pay $200 a month for it.
Okay. That's not bad anyway. But it still is not going to be there for the winter either. I don't suppose.
I can leave it out there.
I would like to hear how much it would cost to actually do some work there.
Okay. John?
Reference has been made to those people who shut it down. Isn't this the health unit?
Oh, no.
No, sorry. It's
who shut it down?
It was closed at the town's request. And it was, when I say shut down, it was what's the word? Taken out of commission. like the water shut off and by Bob Shirley and Harvey Clark. So a call's been made to them.
How are they involved?
They used to do a lot with the, the well and the septic out there. So that's the question, is whether or not we can still access those infrastructure items to be able to get it back up and running. I'm not sure how they shut it down, if they permanently disabled it, or is it something that we can access and turn back on?
Well, I'm confused. I always imagined that these were our decisions, not the decisions of private citizens.
No. The town made the decision to close the washrooms.
Okay, but
And the people who did it, and the people who did it for us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Mark, you had your, oh, right. I hate to hear the word engineering studies, etc. at this point with that issue. I would like sort of a little bit more of a generalized approach, that we're not spending money first before we've actually made the decision that this is what we want to do. That would be my suggestion. Does anybody else have any comments regarding this issue? Yes, Fred?
No, I agree with you, Your Worship. I think, Kim, look into it. Don't do any engineering studies yet, and sort of get back to it. This ballpark, could it be done? Rough idea as to what the costs are, and then we can make the decision whether or not.
Unfortunately, I won't be able to give you a rough idea as to costs. I'll be able to tell you whether or not that Harvey and Bob believe it's possible. But as far as, I won't be able to give you any type of, I won't have any idea of how to cost this out without the engineers telling me what needs to be done.
Okay, well, that's the first step. Let's do that now.
The first step is to find out from Bob and Harvey whether or not this is even a feasible idea. Yeah. And if it is, then I'll let council know, and then you can direct me what you would like me to do from there.
Okay. So that is the answer to that. So we have a motion that council receives the 2021 departmental capital budgets. Could I have a mover? Moved by Nix and seconded by Magdalo. Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, that's carried. So now we're on to number 2, the cost of living allowance for 2021 COLA adjustment and inflation rate. So we have a memo from Les. Did you want to add anything to that, Les?
No, not really, Mayor Ryan. Basically, that is the process that council has adopted. Probably this is like the 3rd term of council. We take the average inflation increase per month for the last year, and then propose that as a cost of living adjustment, and use that as an inflation rate to set the budget.
Okay. And any discussion on this? The recommendation is a rate of 1% for 2021 budget purposes. Yes, John?
I have some trouble with the approach here. I understand that Les needs to have some sort of figure to work with, but it's got to be a figure without prejudice to us revisiting the amount of our budget and the tax rate. Once upon a time, we used to have a discussion at council to give the treasurer direction as to how much we were prepared to see the tax rate increase or decrease for that matter, and how much we were prepared to see the budget either stay the same or increase. And I think that that's a far better approach than setting a figure that, when you read the report, applies not only to budget planning, but also presumes an increase in salaries. I have it on very good authority that Orangeville's figure of 2% is for budget planning purposes only. There have been no assurances given to anyone that staff salaries are going to be going up by 2%. As for the county, the figure of 1.5% is in fact based on a multi-year agreement with the union, and the majority of our employees are unionized. And of course, we enter into multi-year union agreements, collective agreements with those employees. So the county is a slightly different situation, but I think we need to be very careful here. And I would propose something like this. The question in my mind is, can we afford to maintain our tax rate at its current level, and at the same time have some assessment growth that allows us to increase the budget, such that we do the things that we want to do? And I think in answering those two questions, everything else follows on. So I'll just put that out there.
Okay. Any comments from other council members? Councillor Mantalo.
John, just to be sure that I understand, are you proposing that, proposing a specific number here, such as we do not increase the tax rate, but we do increase the budget line with what the increasing assessment is? Is that your proposal?
Well, I don't know what those numbers would be. So I don't know how much room we have to maneuver if we keep the tax rate frozen, and what the increased assessment might be. In fact, we may not have enough room to formulate a budget based on that. But I think it's a better process than picking a figure that is presumed to be both a budget planning number as well as a salary adjustment number. All else failing, I think it should be understood very, very clearly that if we mandate a 1%, it is for budget planning purposes only. And that obviously, when we start looking at the budget, we then make the decisions with regard to our priorities and staff salaries and so forth and so on. But I would hope that we would get away from the notion that we are setting salary increases almost as the first order of business after we end the capital discussion. I feel very uncomfortable about it.
Okay. Sharon?
I hate to be the one to say that this is the way we've done it for the last few years, but I don't think there's any, I don't have an issue with making it 1%. In fact, it could be 1.5 and I'd still be happy. So I'm sure other people have other opinions.
Okay. Fred?
I don't think, John, that, I mean, I wouldn't disagree with anything you've said, but I don't think anything we're doing today precludes what you're looking for. It's just giving Les some guidance as to go back and produce some numbers for us. But my experience has always been, when he presents us with that first draft budget, we have lots of room to say yay or nay or take out specific items or determine wage rates or anything else. That's when the real, in my view, when the real crunch comes in setting the budget. On the tax rate, it would be my guess, if the experience of the last few years has been any guidance, that it's probably going to fall again this year. It's now about Les, I forget again, is it 0.36 or whatever it is, the mill rate? And it's been falling every year, and I suspect it will again this year. So I don't, anyway, I think you're attaching too much importance to this stats can inflation rate. It just says to Les, go prepare some numbers and bring them back to us, and we'll see what we think.
Okay, John?
If I may, there's a built-in contradiction here in the report. This is the first sentence. As part of the annual budget deliberations, Council considers the cost of living adjustment for staff salaries at this time of year to maintain consistency from year to year. This also determines the inflation rate for the budget. So effectively, we're saying we're doing both. Then the recommendation says, I think quite clearly, that we adopt the inflation rate of 1% for budget purposes. I have no problem with that. I do have a problem with the lead-in that suggests that when we are determining a figure for budget purposes, we are also setting a rate of increase for staff.
If I could say something, you are correct, Deputy Mayor. If council proceeds with the 1%, I would adjust the salaries in the budget on the salary line items by 1%, and it's not fixed until council makes the final determination. If council finds that they cannot achieve their goals for setting a tax rate for 2021, council does have the flexibility to roll back to 1%. As Councillor Nix has said, it's a starting point for me to at least deliver you a draft package.
Okay. Any other comments? Seeing none, we have a prepared motion that council adopts an inflation rate of 1% for 2021 budget purposes. Could I have a mover? Moved by Mantelo. And second by Nix. Any further discussion? Yes?
If I may, I will support a 1% for budget planning purposes without prejudicing a further consideration of anything that frankly finds its way into the budget. But I just want to make it very plain that I'm not buying into the salary adjustment by virtue of supporting this motion. It's not to say that I'm not in favor of an increase. Don't get me wrong. I just think we have to get the emphasis on the right syllable, as you might say.
Yeah, and I think that we've had a fulsome discussion, and it's been made very clear that this is the starting point, and we as council have the opportunity throughout the whole process to modify, reduce, adjust, delete. So this is only a starting point. So it gives Les an opportunity to do his paperwork. So given that, we do have a motion on the floor. I will ask if anyone's opposed to the motion. Seeing none, then that is carried.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Les. Okay, so now we're on to the Safe Start Restart Grant, and Les's recommendation is that we do not submit anything for phase 2, as we probably would not qualify. Anyone have any questions regarding this information? See, yes, Ralph?
Your Honor, I'd just like to ask Les to clarify some numbers. I'd like to leave this with a feeling of where we stand in terms of being a surplus or a deficit. We have a statement here that the 2019 year-end surplus projection of 60,000, but the real surplus was 228,000. What does that really mean? the budget.
Well, when I prepare the draft budget this time of the year, the final numbers are not in yet regarding revenues and especially in, with expenditures. So when council does adopt the budget in December, we still haven't got actual costs from November yet. So as we go into the new year and the audit is done and the numbers are finalized, then we establish the year-end surplus. So as it turned out, we had the surplus was budgeted as a conservative amount, and then it came in a lot higher. So the starting point or the balance forward, as you may say, for 2020 was higher than budgeted, which is favorable to us. I think the main point where I'm recommending not to apply for phase 2 of the grant is the one criteria is we have to consider using our reserves that have not been earmarked yet. And we do have a balance of reserves with council over the years has established. And at this point of the year, we have not come to council and say, look, we're short of cash. We need help. We have to have authorization to bring in reserves. And the province will be looking at that. Do we take that step? And at this point, we have not, and we don't need to.
Hey, Ralph?
Well, thank you, Les. I don't have any issue with your conclusion that we do not go for it the next phase. I just want to get some understanding of the numbers, and the 228,000 surplus for 2019. I think that's a fixed number, right?
That's correct. That'll be the
Okay.
number I'll be coming forward with when we do the next draft budget.
And to for my simple mind, what does that mean?
It means it's basically like your bank account. You do a projection of the your salary perhaps or your money coming into your account. You project what the expenditures are going out, and then you project a balance at the end of a month or a year. As it turned out, the expenditures that came out of the account, as an example, were lower than budgeted. So at the end of the month, we ended up with more money than forecasted. So it's actually favorable for us for 2020.
Good. That's what I wanted to know. So we have, in other words, I have 228,000 in my bank account that I didn't expect to at the beginning of the year.
That's correct, versus the 60 plus.
Yes, thank you. The second one is down in the conclusion there. We had a 204,000 safe return grant, and I'm not clear on that. Did we only use 37,000 of that, or?
Oh no! Basically, what that says, that's the amount that under the safe return grant we have already received from the province. That $37,000 figure came from all my financial updates to council over the last few months. I had 4 financial updates to council, and my last financial update was overall effect. After this grant comes into effect, we have to come up with roughly 37,000. So having a higher surplus than expected more than covers that 37,000.
Okay, and so that included in that is the $204,000 as spent money.
That's correct. Yes.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. And any other questions of Les on his report? So, do we need a motion to say that we accept your recommendation, or?
I think a motion just that you accept my report and the recommendations already in it.
Okay. So, Fred Simpson, if you can craft that motion.
Certainly, that council receives the Safe Restart Agreement Phase 2 funding report presented by the treasurer on October 21st, 2020.
And if I could add to that, and accepts the recommendation.
Okay.
Well, Okay, I mean, the recommendation is to not do something, but
Right,
either way.
yes.
So if we can add to and accept the recommendation in the report. So could I have a mover, please? Moved by Martin, second by Creelman. Any discussion further? Okay, call for the vote. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, that's carried. And so now we're moving
Okay, thank you.
into, thanks very much, Les. We're moving into new business. So we have a letter received by Hockley Historic Community Hall and Church requesting financial support. And just to remind council members, we already do waive their property taxes each year and have done so for a number of years. So did you have any discussion, questions, comments, suggestions? Councillor Nix.
Well, on the one hand, my first instinct was to look in Schedule A at Les's latest numbers for the end of November, and ballpark we're about $200,000 shy on our revenue side and about $100,000 over on our expenditure side, which in my simple mind says we got a hole there of $300,000, so we don't really have anything left to give. But I know those are just temporary numbers up to the end of September. My other thought is, and I would ask him this, that have we used up all our donations budget for 2020? I sort of, on Bitcoin on memory, think there was a bit of money left in there, but I can't be sure of that.
Oh, if I can answer that for you, Councillor Nix. The donation budget, if you recall, was used up in paying the DC charge for the ski club. The donation budget is $6,600, and the DC was approximately $11,000. And the reason there was a DC, so there's no donation budget.
Okay. Any other, Councillor Mangelo?
I'd like to speak in favor of supporting them. I did call the secretary, Janice Mason, yesterday and asked for a little information because I didn't know what the status of this organization was or how it was run or anything about their reserves, and I can pass on some information to you. Many of you may know this already, but this is two buildings. There's a church which was had its 150th anniversary I think it was last year, and the community hall, I believe it was 120th or 125th. These are historical landmarks in our town, and they have been maintained by a group of volunteers and a board of directors. The board of directors is made up of 4 people living in Mono, 3 living in Adtos. This was deeded through the Historical Society of Canada in 2018. It's a non-for-profit charitable organization. They have currently about $9,000 in the reserve. They have been drawing on the reserve for their hydro and heating and insurance on a monthly basis. And as you can see there, they've asked for $450 per month, and they've asked it to be shared between Adtos and ourselves. They have not got a reply yet from Adtos. These are, I think, valuable buildings in terms of our cultural heritage. They have been well maintained. They have an interest. They say that the roof of the church, it's the community hall roof has to be replaced, and the reserve will be going towards that. Their income every year is based on fundraising that they do and rentals, and the expenses they have are almost all in terms of maintenance are handled by the volunteers, such as painting, which was done, interior painting, which was done very recently. This is a really slim budget organization where I think we get a heck of a lot for very little cost because the volunteers do it all. It reminds me of a few other organizations that I won't mention in town, but I like that. So if we were to support them and Edge Toss would support them, we'd be looking at, you know, if this thing went on for a year, we'd be looking at less than $3,000. I think we can come up with that. And I'm suggesting that we do that. And I'm wondering if it's possible to put some kind of a rider on this, which says that we're doing this with the expectation that Edge Toss will equally support it, because these two buildings are on the Mono Adjua town line, so that they are currently equally used by residents from both municipalities.
Okay, thank you. Yes, John?
I'd like to support what Ralph is saying. These are amenities, community amenities and historic sites within our town, in an area that I think we sometimes we overlook. Hockley Village is you know, I think deserving of facilities that in many instances are used and appreciated by residents in that area in the same way that people utilize and appreciate Mono Center and Menorah. So you know, I think we should be approaching Toss Adjua and seeing whether they're prepared to come to the table as well. But I'd support what Ralph is suggesting.
Okay. Sharon?
The group that's doing this have done a really good job. And I've been at a couple of events there, and they aren't the traditional heritage properties. They're more cultural heritage than they are just because they're old, because they're not necessarily beautiful or anything like. They're very well maintained. They look really good. I think there must be somewhere that we could find some money for them where I suppose it doesn't have to be exactly what they're asking for, but I would like to see some money pushed their way, and maybe we could put it in our budget for the next time. And maybe it shouldn't be with the donations. There must be some other heading, because we're going to be asked again. And what do we start off with for our donations? 15,000? How much?
6,600.
That's all?
6,000. You are correct, Councillor. At one point, it was years back. It was approximately 15,000, and over the years, it has been reduced.
Okay, this might be a year to bring it back up again, because I think we're going to be asked more. But yeah, I would be in favor of finding a way to get some money for the buildings, for the people that are running them. Thank you.
Okay. Fred, next, did you have a comment?
No more than I've already said. I'm not opposed to what Ralph is suggesting. I just, you know, I'm worried. I'm not sure where the money would come from in our current budget.
Yeah. And I am also concerned about that. Plus, I'm concerned the ramifications if we donate to one. Are we opening the door to be donating to many others? I've already been contacted on a number of occasions by the OAS. They feel that they should have their property taxes reduced, or just written off altogether because they're not able to make any money. And I mean, you know, the list can start going. I'm not opposed to maybe a potential one-time amount of money, because I definitely share all of your comments on the kinds of work that this particular group does, but I'm just also concerned about coming forward. So, Fred?
And I should also say, as Kim and I know, because we've got phone calls, we're going to have another sports club coming after asking for money for this year, which is not in our budget. I I don't know where you draw the line. I mean, it is our taxpayers that provide this money, and it's like the finger in the dam. If we take the finger out of the hole, I don't know where it stops.
Great. John?
I think we need to differentiate between the OAS and this organization. OAS is taxed, of course, at the agricultural rate of 25%, so they already have a significant break, and they are also increasingly geared towards activities that make it more an event center than an agricultural society. So I think I don't have any problem treating the two issues quite separate and apart from each other. I don't think one sets a precedent for the other.
Okay. So it could, Sharon?
I just think that these are different times, and we have to be prepared for people coming with their hand out, needing help to continue with whatever they're doing, their building or their club or whatever it is. We can't just say no to everybody or no to this one just because we feel more are coming. More are coming. It's a different world now, and I think we have to be prepared for that.
Okay, so I'm hearing that the donation should be approved, but what dollar amount, and should we ask our treasurer to suggest where it can come from? Mark?
Your Worship, I heard that you wanted to see what Angela did with it. The town does already subsidize the church through writing off the taxes. So that's something that Angela's not incurring any expense at this point in time. So given that we're into almost November, I'm wondering why you just don't leave the donation request until you get into your 2021 operating budget and leave it at that. And by that time, you'll know what Angela's done.
Okay. What?
That makes sense. That makes sense.
So, Deputy Mayor?
I think we need to be proactive in terms of approaching Angela with the view to finding out what they're doing and to indicate what the tentative will of our council is. If left to their own devices, they may just say no.
Okay, so I'll make contact with Mayor Pinto and find out what their council has decided on this request. And so are we all right to bring this back to our next regular council meeting with a report and possible options going forward? Yes, Ralph? You're good with that? Okay, okay, thank you. All right, so now on to item 2, motion by Deputy Mayor Creelman regarding amendment to the Municipal Elections Act.
Yes, I think my motion is fairly self-explanatory, and I was involved in a call last night, a Zoom call with probably 250 individuals from all over Ontario and indeed parts of Canada, very, very concerned that an approach to elections was being shut down by Premier Ford. There was no warning on this. There was no consultation on this. It is something that not only precludes us from considering it, but it also precludes the City of London from doing it again. And there were speakers on the call, including the clerk of the City of London, who spoke to how successful the process was, how it enfranchised a number of groups within the town. It led to more candidates, not fewer candidates. And the outcome, although they had a few bumps in the road, was very positive. I don't think my motion tips our hand as to how we would or would not have considered this as a possibility for the next election. But I think it expresses our profound disappointment that the provincial government once again is falling into the trap of pretending to treat us like adults until they don't. And this is an example where they don't.
Okay. Councillor Michelot?
I speak very much in favor of this. I think that it's pretty a surprise that this has come down from on high without much rationale other than its experimentation, which is probably a misnomer. I particularly dislike I I don't have a fixed point of view on how we should be voting. I'm looking for our own electoral reform committee to come up with recommendations. However, moving the date of from July to mid-September, I think that really compresses things unfairly, particularly for any new candidates. And I don't see any rationale for doing that. So I quite strongly support this motion. I think that should be approved.
Okay. John?
Just to the point of the experimentation, one of the surprising facts that was presented last night in the call was that Canada is the only country in the OECD that has a pure first past the post electoral system. Every other country in the OECD has a combination of various approaches, but we are the last one. So if anything, we're behind everybody else.
Okay. Sharon, did you have any comments?
Yeah, I think it's probably a good idea to send this, and the one that I agree with Ralph too, that municipal nomination date moving from July to mid-September is really that's really terrible. I would say that it does compress the whole thing into a very short timeline, and I have always wondered what difference it would make to change our system from first past the post. And I don't know if it would make a big difference in Mono. I'd like to hear from the deputy mayor that it meant that more people were running. I hadn't heard that before, that more people joined the fray if they had if they changed to a ranked ballot. So with those things in mind, yes, I'd be in favor of sending this off.
Okay. John?
London's experience, as I recall, was that there were an average of 4 candidates for each position, as opposed to simply 2 candidates for each position. So the argument was that more people were encouraged to get involved and to throw their hat in the ring. Of course, there's no point in ranked ballot if it's simply 2 people running against each other. But we have a system with a combination, a perfect storm combination of low turnout plus simply 2 people, say 3 people running or more people running. It could in theory result in somebody being elected with 10% of the positive votes of the entire electorate. That's hardly a mandate. So, and it's very sobering to think that if you had 3 candidates for one position and a turnout in the range of 30-35% and a voter split fairly evenly, the winner would have the support of only 10% of total electors. So London's experience was very positive in terms of seeing more people step forward.
Okay, so with that, John, I assume that you are moving your motion. And could I have a seconder? Seconded by Nix. And if there's no further discussion, I'll ask if anybody's opposed. And seeing none, that carries.
Can we take a 5-minute break?
What's the majority of council want to do?
We
Can we
just
make
have
it
to
10?
What's that? 10 minutes?
10 minutes?
Okay.
Your worship, during this break, I can have that resolution thrown up on the screen just in case anyone wants to see it who hasn't had the benefit of having the agenda.
Thank you for reminding me.
Andrew, I think you can put up the in recess logo if you'd like.
Yeah.
Oh, it's going pretty well. We sent it back. I'm not sure whether it's like to send it back to Richie to give us some more information. His QP had the report he was supposed to. that's a qualified person. I know that it's not my part, it's confirmation that our conversation in July. Mark said, you know, it's not really our responsibility to monitor it.
Yes.
You say you're going to Grafton this afternoon, motherfucker? I thought we had some turkey stew tonight, how's that?
Sounds absolutely wonderful.
And maybe we can add something else in something, a little additional plate if you like. Maybe we should have onions, mushrooms, and something. Hold on. There you go.
Okay. All right, no, that's too much. Stew's good.
Pretty cool.
No. I just walked up and down the stairs sometimes to dig my nose into my.
Oh, good. Good to hear. Good to hear. Done that, and you're pleased.
Are we still off?
No, we're just in recess still. we're all good to go again. Is Andrew able to put us back online? Okay, thank you, Andrew. Okay, now we're into new business. Item number 3, Aragon Crozier request to drill test well on town properties. And that information has been provided to all council members. Mark, did you want to start us off with this?
Sure. This is a matter first came into us in September 14th from Crozier and Associates. Chris Garretts and David Page had requested to drill on the town's property near the well at the existing Cardinal Woods well. We talked about it through staff, engineering, and public works, and to some extent legal. And we felt that, similar to what we had in the Cole subdivision with the 2 wells close by and one going down and the risk of another in the same pocket going down, that we felt it was appropriate to get some separation for a second well. So we offered the Klondike property as an opportunity to drill a backup well for the system. And I think there's been further discussions between Mr. Page's engineers and our engineers that led to I would say a compromise position of actually drilling a well on the Klondike property, seeing the capacity of that system, and also looking at a backup well in the park in case the Klondike well doesn't go. So we've drafted a draft resolution for you. I provided it to you, I think, on Friday. It's been reviewed both by legal and engineering. At this point in time, that's all I have. Gord and Chris Garretts are both on the call and may be able to offer some additional information for you.
Okay. And so at this point, Gord, did you want to say anything further to Mark's report?
No, I think that for background, that's fine. There's nothing I would add. I'd be happy to answer questions, though.
Okay. Any questions of our engineering firm? Yes, Fred?
Yeah, I had already sent in a question by email as to why we needed a backup well, because I didn't understand it, and Gord very kindly has provided an answer. So I don't have any further questions.
Okay. And Sharon, are you wanting to make a comment?
Did we all get the answer from that Fred got, or was it just to Fred, or was it to all of us? Because I haven't looked at emails for a bit.
I can, with Gord's permission, I can CC it to everybody. I had just asked him why we need a backup well, and he gave me a technical explanation.
Okay, that'll do.
Okay. So Chris Garretts, welcome to the meeting. Did you have anything that you wanted to add to the discussion?
Report. We were just looking for buy-in from council at this point, with the details to be ironed out because contractors currently are booking, 6 to 8 weeks out, and we'd like to get work done during the winter so that we're not interfering with any of the summer use of the park. And that's all.
Okay. Any questions from council members to Chris on this item? Yes, Ralph? Your mic?
Just a comment. Seems to me if we're going to have another well that's a backup, that it definitely shouldn't be taking, or an alternative to provide additional water, that having it side by side with one of our other wells is not a good idea. I'm not sure whether going with the Klondike is far enough away to get into a different part of the aquifer, but maybe Chris could answer that.
Yeah, just so that was Burnside's concern with going in the park, that it would be too close. We really wanted to, before ruling it out, at least sample and see, because with fractured bedrock, you can never really tell until you get a test well in and check it out. With respect to the Klondike property, there is a divide running north right through that property that divides the shale bedrock aquifer and the limestone aquifer, limestone being further to the west. So I think Burnside agrees that the thought there was, if we can go further to the west of the Klondike property, we would be in potentially a different aquifer. So that was, I think, their rationale for going there, plus the additional separation, which reduces potential for interference. So I hope that answers that.
Okay.
That was a question. So you're tapping into another source, which makes excellent sense to me.
Yep, hopefully.
Okay. All right. Well, we do have a prepared motion. I'll read it and then request a mover and seconder. That the town has no objection to exploratory test wells being drilled on town properties, subject to the following conditions. 1, that 2 wells be drilled and tested by Aragon Hockley Development Ontario Corp at its cost, 1 at Mono College Park and 1 at the Klondike property. 2, that the locations of the drilling sites shall be approved by the town engineer. 3, that Aragon Hockley Development Ontario Corp enter into an agreement with the town prepared by the town solicitor regarding the parameters of drilling to include, but not limited to, insurance requirements, timing of drilling, access to property, reporting of results, and restoration of property. And 4, that the costs of the legal and engineering review of this work be borne by Aragon Hockley Development Ontario Corporation. Could I have someone move the motion? Moved by Nix and seconded by Mantelo. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, then I'll ask if anybody is opposed to the motion. And seeing none, that is carried. Thank you very much for attending, Gord and Chris, and we will carry on.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. So at this point, we're at Schedule A. So I'm going to ask Ralph, is there anything on Schedule A that you wanted to remark on?
Yes, Your Honor, I just wanted to remark on the initiative of home monitoring for COVID patients and that Headwaters is developing. This is a concept which is being used has been used for maybe a decade, not only for home monitoring but for consultations and medical care. And we're really behind the 8 ball in this. And we're behind the 8 ball because of the lack of high-speed internet here in town. And when Paul Lansing was working on, was in charge of the committee, the late Paul Lansing, one of the major advantages to improved high-speed internet was going to be the ability for medical care to be accessed in the periphery and in the rural areas. This is a great initiative by the Headwaters Hospital, and particularly by Tom Reed and the ambulance group have made themselves very valuable in initiating this. I think it means that 100 people who otherwise might benefit by being in hospital for monitoring can have good monitoring and follow up at home on a daily basis. So I think it's a really good initiative.
Okay. Is there anything else on Schedule A?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Fred, did you have anything on Schedule A?
Well, I tried to read and understand that, is it icon thing? And then I sort of didn't quite get it all, but I thought, thank goodness we have John Creelman on council because he understands it. So I'll just leave that. The other thing I tried to read and quite impressed by is the TRCA document on their draft memorandums of understanding or agreements with municipalities. That is a big document. I don't know how far staff. I know staff has had one meeting with TRCA on this. I will just say one impression. That's not really asking a question, Mark, but when I read the list of things that TRCA provides to its member municipalities, the thought that did occur to me is we in the town of Mono don't actually use a lot of those services. Tourism, they built the trails and all these things that they do. So I don't know what type of MOU we're going to enter into all of them. I don't want to be, I don't want to dismiss TRCA. I think they're a great organization, but wow, they provide a lot of services, education that, we don't use those services.
Okay. And is there anything else on the Schedule A, Fred? No? Sharon?
Well, we've talked about two of the things that I had on my mind, so that's great. The only other thing is I heartily approve of the letter to the superintendent of parks at Mono Cliffs. That's tremendous. I add to the vehicles going past there because I go and check all the time, and it's really bad. But I imagine it will die down a bit as it gets snow. As snow arrives and people don't want to be in the muck and whatever. But right now, the whole thing is just ridiculous. Obviously, they need to buy more space for parking, and I guess part of it is we need to insist that there's only parking on one side or whatever we decide and involve the OPP. It's not even safe. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. And I think part of the discussion will be the responsibility that management of that park has on these locations. It shouldn't be our taxpayers that are paying for extra policing patrols, etc. And we shouldn't have to be doing bylaw enforcement for parking infractions. So whether or not it's no parking on both sides of the road, like similar to what the county did on Hockley Road on that area, or if we only do one side of the road. But the problem is that there are local agricultural industries that are trying to use the roads network to get from one property to another, and it is becoming exceedingly dangerous. So I know, Deputy Mayor, you had comments and a potential motion that you wanted to bring forward.
I do, and I'm happy to wait until notices to introduce a notice of motion that I think will address some of the road parking issues. Back to the issue of ICON. This is a provincial program which is sort of unfortunately named ICON because the only other ICON that I'm familiar with is the antiquated, sometimes broken computer system that the courts use. But be that as it may, ICON in this instance is a grant program. It is extremely hard to navigate the portal, as Mark has done successfully after much trying, to get a manual as to exactly what is involved. And as you read the manual, you discover that there are a lot of limitations in the conditions that will preclude startups like Mono Wireless from partnering with a municipality to access a maximum of 25% of a particular project or project's costs. So I'd like to go to bat with the province on some of the conditions that they have set up, which I think are highly preferable to the large players and not the small players. And there's also the issue of what parts of the municipality would be eligible for ICON projects. So I'm disappointed, having read the manual, and I'm not finished reading it, but there are some real issues with it. I'm going to be meeting with Mono Wireless at 1 o'clock this afternoon, so I'll be discussing that further with them.
Okay, so you'll keep us updated. Did you have anything else? Okay. Did you have anything else?
No, just that I want to go to bat for some of our mono-based startups and those who might participate with us. ICON does require the partnership of a municipality and an internet service provider in order for the funds to be accessed. We, in fact, have to fill out the application.
Okay. So, all right. Right. Okay, well, let's hope we can get some headway with that. So if there's nothing else further, we have a motion that we accept Schedule A to this agenda. Could I have a mover? Anybody? Anybody? Did I lose everybody? Ralph, are you there?
Yes.
Okay. Well, you're there. Would you be prepared to move the motion to accept Schedule A?
Yes, yes, Your Honor.
Okay, and could I have a seconder?
Sharon's been waiting.
Okay.
Sharon's
Okay. I don't know if I should log out because my screen is frozen. Is there anybody opposed to accepting the motion?
No one.
Thank you. So that's carried. Can you hear me, Mark?
Yes, I can hear you. You were in a bit of a lag, but now you're back, so I can hear you.
Okay. Because everybody else on the screen is frozen for me. Should I log out, log back in?
It seems to be effective in the past when you've done it.
Okay.
Or I can interpret for you.
Okay. Well, let's go with that then. So reports of members of council and staff projects. So do we still have everybody on? So David Trotman, did you have anything to report?
Thank you, Mayor Ryan. Oh, my screen got moved a bit. I apologize. Just a few things, really. I mean, I've already said to council that we do have an upcoming Committee of Adjustment meeting on October 29th. It's going to be in the afternoon, and there's various reasons for that. It will be virtual, but the committee members are amenable to that, so that will go forward. And then, of course, we have our council session for November 17th, and I'm bringing a few reports forward. There's the Taoist proposal, which is through the Niagara Escarpment Commission, but of course want local municipal mono review of it first. There's also the microbrew proposal, and then of course, as was discussed today, the accessory zoning amendment, accessory structure zoning bylaw amendment. Other than operating budget and other budget matters, I think that's about it. Oh, well, I do have a meeting November 3rd with Dufferin County planners team for the next stage of the official plan, Dufferin County official plan review. That's it.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if everybody else is able to hear or not, but if there's any questions of David?
Don't see any.
Okay.
I think you're good to move on, Laura.
Okay, I'm just chatting here with Andrew about how to fix my screen. You're moving. Everybody else isn't. Kim, are you still with us?
Oh yeah, I wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
Liar.
Yeah, same thing in the recreation department. Been focused this last couple of weeks on budget and the Main Street revitalization project. That's been the top priority. Staff and recreation busy with the preparations for the judging of the Halloween house decorating contest, which is going to be occurring this week. And also with the distribution of the Halloween ghost bags, which are filled with crafts and some chocolate bars and candy. By the way, just wanting to let council know that we received a wonderful donation from I believe it was Giant Tiger up in Shelburne, and they gave us 1,000 pieces of candy for our loot bags, which was amazing. And we also received another donation. I believe it was from the grocery store up there. Can't think of the name of it. No, what's the other one? I can't think of it.
No frills.
No, thanks, Mark. For $100. So that's been put towards the craft supplies. So it's been great. The community has really supported this, and really good thanks to the staff who've been working and putting it together. So that's happening this week as well. We've completed the deck replacement of the boards out at Mono Community Center, and we're just finishing off the posts, and that was all done in-house, which great, saved us a ton of money there. And meeting with CBC this week regarding the Island Lake Management Plan, the Stakeholders Advisory Committee, sitting on that committee with them. And they've just been talking with Dave and myself about some questions they have in regards to the Stakeholders Advisory Committee and information they want to put forward to our council. So, keep them busy, that's for sure.
Any questions of Kim? Seeing none, then we'll move on. Matt Donor, are you still with us?
Yep. Thanks, Mayor Ryan. Nothing real new to report. Capital projects are have been either wrapped up or near wrapping up here in the next couple of weeks, hopefully.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions of Matt? Thanks, Matt. Les, is there anything you wanted to add?
Oh, thank you, Mayor Ryan. I was actually ready to go first, as has been traditionally I have. So I was ready, my button was ready to click on my screen and camera, but
Sorry,
anyways.
My screen froze, so I was just picking whoever.
No, I'm not complaining. It was just unexpected. No, just a small item on my plate next couple of weeks. I'll be meeting with the various department managers, and we'll have hopefully we'll get the budget to for next council meeting.
Okay, that's great news. Lots of work for you. Any questions of Les? Okay, Les, you're off the hook. How about you, Fred Simpson?
Okay. A couple of things. First of all, I hope everyone's received their copy of the newsletter that Andrew put together and hit the streets late last week, so it should be in everyone's mailbox by now. On the topic of the province passing legislation and bearing items in it that are irrelevant to the name of the legislation, in addition to Bill 218 that included the change to the Elections Act, Bill 215, the Main Street Recovery Act of 2020, included a provision that amends the Municipal Act, stating that municipalities no longer have the authority to regulate noise with respect to deliveries to retail businesses, restaurants, bars, clubs, hotels, motels, or any goods distribution facility. That hasn't been proclaimed yet, but it's going to be. And of course, that would affect our noise bylaw, as we do have a section that pertains to delivery. So we will no longer have the ability to regulate noise under those circumstances. And the bill doesn't state during COVID-19. It, like I say, it actually amends the Municipal Act, removing the council's ability to regulate under those circumstances. Another issue I'd like to ask council about is there are a couple of delegations or groups that would like to make delegations coming up, and I was just looking for some feedback. If council wants to see delegations during the budget process, or if they'd like to try to reduce those until the budget is completed, you know, whether that's the last meeting in December or push things off even into the new year.
And these delegations that you're referring to are more like presentations of a particular organization as opposed to an individual resident's concerns requesting a delegation.
That's right. We've got one request and another one I'm anticipating. Both of them are from groups. One's not even within the town boundaries. Now, this wouldn't, of course, preclude, say, the park superintendent from Mono Cliffs coming to council if she were to have time to show and come out to council, but other groups. So we've got, I think Councillor Nick suggested he had heard from a sporting organization that may be looking to make a request of council for some additional or some funding. And we've been approached by Stevenson Memorial Hospital to the CEO, Jody Levesque, to come and make a presentation. So I could accommodate these or ask them to hold off a little bit.
Mark?
And Fred doesn't know about this. It was going to be part of my report too. So the county service delivery study is nearing completion too. And one of the comments that was made during our last meeting was whether council still wished the consultants to come back and make a presentation to council as well. And then what dates you would like that on as well. So I was going to bring that up. So that's another delegation you should be looking at or giving direction on.
Okay. Anybody, yes, Fred, next?
On that subject, Mark, there's now going to be an all-council meeting on the 25th of November on the service delivery report. I assume it's important for us as councillors to attend that meeting. It's going to be by Zoom.
Okay.
Will any staff? My concern is, given bandwidth problems, could I access the municipal building at 7 o'clock on the 25th to attend that meeting? Or will any staff be here?
Yes, we can make arrangements.
Because I'll be here.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so any other questions for Fred Simpson? Yes, John.
My views on what I call fly the flag delegations are fairly well known. You know, apart from the Mono Cliffs Park superintendent, I can't think of any other delegation that I want to hear from until after we've dealt with our budget and planning issues. Unless it is a resident of the town of Mono who wants to speak to us directly, who can't do it through a question or a written submission. I think a lot of these delegations, frankly, can say what they need to say through written submissions, just like the Hockley Church people did today.
Okay. So that gives you an idea, Fred, for going forward with any of these requests.
Okay, nope, that's perfect. We'll hold off those that aren't directly from residents or have some other kind of need to get on to council soonest.
Okay. Thank you. So, Mark.
So we finalized, at least from the CAO level, the service delivery study that was on the 14th and 15th. They were both full half-day meetings with the consultants. The consultants are meeting with some of the fire boards, I believe, and members of the fire boards just to finalize their study. There seems to be a push towards getting rid of the fire boards or changing the dynamics of the fire boards. So they want to discuss that with the individual members. And I think they were also approaching the various fire chiefs of the fire boards. So other than that, the only other thing I'd add is TRCA is also doing I guess a road trip with their senior staff, and I'll be attending with them towards the 2 new properties that they have in the town of Mono. That'll be Monday of next week. So other than that, I don't have anything else to add.
Okay. Any questions of Mark? Seeing none then, thank you, Mark. So Sharon, do you have anything to report?
I have nothing to report. However, I would like to make a shout out to Dave Matkowski, who he really takes on a lot of work and does a tremendous job, and I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that. And he works everywhere and has done a spectacular job on floors, decks, you just name it. And after, I think for about 10 years, I wanted the garbage
enclosure
area, yes, in a different place at Monora, because at Mono Center, it's in a great spot. And that's been done, and it's really looking good. And I think he deserves a shout out. Thank you.
Okay. Ralph, did you have anything?
Yes, Your Honor. I think that I've made Les happy, or we've made Les happy, to be more correct, in that we're not going to be sending the grant back, the Main Street grant back to the government. As we've been, it looks like we're on track to get our invoices in for all the projects before the end of this week, which is a requirement. And just a shout out as well to Kim and to Matt and to Andrew and Jake, who really pushed it forward on the project of signage and route making. It was extremely well done. Appreciation to all of you. The Mono-Pollinator Garden has carried on since sometime in June with mostly twice a week maintenance sessions, and there'd be anywhere from 3 to 7 or 8 volunteers there each day, led by Utah Olderide. And the maintenance sessions are now stopped. We have one major project, which is the creation of the South Plot. The South Plot's a piece of land that sits immediately south of where we've been working for the last 4 years, and it's going to be consisting of a grove of trees and a wildflower planting. And we have a committee that is working on that. If any of you have tried wildflower planting, you know that it's a somewhat iffy proposal, and so we've had lots of ideas about how best to do that. And the seeding will actually be done this year. As long as you get the seeds in before the snow flies, you're all good. And so it would be very interesting to see how that works out. The other, it's just a question At a previous council meeting, we asked if the electoral reform committee that's chaired by John Riley, if they could get going again. And I wondered if that contact, I've forgotten who was going to make the contact, but if that has been done and if they've had a response.
I have a feeling that it was supposed to be me, but I know that they do have their committee of adjustment on Thursday. So maybe after that meeting on Thursday, see how it went in terms of their abilities to navigate our Zoom meetings or GoTo meetings, and find out where he wants to go next. So I apologize for.
No, that's fine. I just the time is of some importance here. I think if we're making any recommendations. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Fred, next.
Or maybe just one minor item. I was on a Bruce Trail work party last week, and the significance here is that the property is on the 7th line, about a kilometer in from where it hits Airport Road. I forget the person's name, but the Bruce Trail runs through her property for maybe 600-700 meters. And now in the past, when we're dealing with private property, we don't do any maintenance in there other than the trail. But now they've relaxed their policies, and we went into this property, about a dozen of us, and we went after 3 invasive species: Scotch pine, is it Scotch pine or Scotch pine? Manitoba maple. But more importantly, I worked on the crew with buckthorn, and there was a lot of it there. So it's a tiny piece of work. Boy, I wish I could get more landowners interested in trying to control buckthorn in the town of Mono. It's a bad species. That's all I have to report.
Okay. So John.
A few things. The police boards of Dufferin County had a meeting last week, a training session. It went very well. And it came up in the course of that meeting that the city that the province wanted, I'm trying to remember the name of it, probably isn't going to be expected much before a year from now, if even that. And that was the study where there was confusion as to whether or not we each had to do our own study or whether we could pool our resources with the county. And they finally decided that the county could take the lead on it. As we've been speaking, an overture has come out suggesting a POA Board of Management virtual meeting for December, and I think we'll see that occur. And what else? I think that's about it, apart from my notice of motion. That's it.
Okay. Thank you. So we will move on then to notices of motion. So John.
Yes, and this flows from the concerns expressed about the parking situation proximate to the parking entrance for Monocliff Park. And it's a notice of motion, so presumably it will be taken up at the next meeting. But if we want to fast forward it, I wouldn't mind that. But I'm not expecting that that it be taken up until next meeting, and it does speak to a request that staff report back to the subsequent meeting, so that would be a month from now. So the motion is worded as follows, and I'll get the wording to Fred, that staff report back to council at its next meeting on the practicality of prohibiting parking on one side of the third line in proximity to the entrance to the Monocliff parking lot. That should be Monocliff parking lot, as well as the possibility of appointing and or hiring provincial offense officers to enforce our parking bylaws. A little bit of explanation. I frankly think that we have a bylaw that allows us to appoint provincial offense officers. Eugene Lamerding is so appointed. And my recollection of the bylaw is that it speaks in terms of one or more. I don't want to see the OPP ticketing. I think their efforts are best directed at speeding and traffic infractions throughout the town. But there would be no reason, in my view, to take a number of people who do road patrols or indeed find individuals who are prepared to be sworn in as provincial offense officers who would handle our ticketing in this stretch of road and possibly other stretches of road as well that are designated as no parking or limited parking. So that's the rationale behind the motion. And I think we also need to ask the roads department to identify which of the sides of road would be best to prohibit parking on. And as everybody has noted, this is a road where there's combines and various farm machinery going north-south, but also on our dump days, there were individuals with trailer loads full of brush trying to navigate between two rows of parked cars. It could be that one side of the road is more conducive to prohibiting parking than another. I'm not an expert on that, but maybe that's something that staff could look into and make a recommendation. I don't know about parking prohibition on both sides, but again, I'm open to suggestions on that too.
Thank you, and we will discuss that at our next meeting. So if there is no other business for the betterment of the town of Mono, we will close off. We introduce and give the necessary readings to a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of Council of the Town of Mono in session VC14-2020, held on the 27th of October 2020, that it be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed and engrossed in the bylaw book. Could I have a mover? Moved by Nix and seconded by Martin. Anybody opposed? That's carried. And we adjourn at 12:18 p.m. And that's moved by Creelman and seconded by Magdalo. And that's carried. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.